Gerald Celente is coming up at the bottom of the next hour to break down the current developments in the economy and his future predictions on where it is going. We'll also get his take on other geopolitical trends like the situation in Libya. In the last 30 minutes of the broadcast today, Webster Griffin Tarpley, historian and, of course, economist who traveled and spent several weeks a month or so ago in Libya, will be joining us to break down the latest developments there. Also, coming up later, I covered some of this yesterday on the Sunday broadcast. I want to get more into it. Ron Paul, they're setting the stage for violence in this country. That's what he said when he was asked by a reporter, are you concerned about the National Emergencies Centers Establishment Act that sets up FEMA camps, or basically just openly legalizes them and funds them to a greater extent? They're admittedly there and in place, according to the Houston Chronicle and other publications. And Ron Paul said, yeah, that's their goal. They're setting up the stage for violence in this country, no doubt about it, responded Ron Paul. So we're going to be going over some of that today. Also, the economic news. Let me hit that first. Social Security, disability on the verge of insolvency. Associated Press is reporting. Do you have any idea how many people are on Social Security disability? How many families are already basically moving in together but trying to survive and can't even pay for gas money? This is the working poor. How many people that are on the verge of eating dog food or already are because there hasn't been a cost of living COLA increase in Social Security in 2 years? They're talking about doing it for a third and fourth year. Do you have any idea what dollar devaluation means to this country? A number of delinquent mortgages is on the rise again. That's out of CNBC. Gold advances to record as platinum climbs. Gold came just shy of $1,900 an ounce earlier in the day. We're going to continue to track that. Wall Street aristocracy got $1.2 trillion in secret Fed loans at 0% or less, and then, of course, loaned it back to the public at exorbitant prices or just sat on it, being paid by the government interest for holding it. You can't make that up. Continuing, stocks jump over 1%. All S&P sectors higher. That was earlier in the day before it began dropping again. In Baltimore, homes are selling for $10,000 and less. Baltimore Sun is reporting. The Greeks, of course, gave in to the banksters and signed their country's resources over to them. So now they're being brought into the next level of debt. As the four largest banks agreed to take up a 50 million euro convertible bond to help recapitalize Proton Bank, a smaller lender. So that slide is continuing. Reality for many baby boomers will be to work as wage slaves until they drop dead. They're going to push retirement past the average age of death, 76. Continuing, Wall Street again is in the news, calling for even more banker bailouts and QE3, which will only accelerate the demise of the dollar. Again, there's more expectation of continued private Federal Reserve, quote, stimulus. They're only stimulating their own sectors of the economy. That is all coming up as well. And I want to open the phones up on any issue, any news item, anything you'd like to talk about. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, 1-800-259-9231. Now, you can call in with any subject you want to raise, but I'm going to try to move on to the next caller quickly. I've done a little bit better job as of late, but still, I wouldn't even call it passable, the number of calls we go to, and I enjoy your calls. I like your calls. I like the different directions you take us in. And so I will attempt to take more calls in the future, including today, 800-259-9231. I would ask listeners, though, to specifically at least comment on some of the big topics we're raising here. The fact that we're in a depression, the fact that Europe is being taken over now by a private banking consortium as part of the establishment of a Bank of the World, that all of this has been engineered, and that after 6 months of Western-backed, Al-Qaeda-driven, the core is Al-Qaeda, in fact, the majority are admitted Al-Qaeda, that they have now reportedly taken over most of the city of Tripoli, and there's ongoing fighting happening right now. Gaddafi's disappeared. His sons have reportedly been captured, but we've heard that before. But there's no doubt there are uprisings in Tripoli, and that Gaddafi is on his way out. Now, we've heard 5 or 6 times that he'd gone to Venezuela or Tunisia, or that he had fallen, or that the rebels had taken Tripoli, but it appears this time it may actually be true. We saw Obama say that we'd be there days, not weeks. That was 4.5 months ago. And so I was very reticent in the last 2 days as they announced that the rebels were at the gates. But it appears that at least a part of this is true. Now, it'd be one thing if they went in and had elections and the people of Libya were allowed to move forward into the future. The problem is they had a British-backed monarchy dictatorship there before Gaddafi staged his coup 40 years ago. And that regime brutally kept the tribes from killing each other. The different, I don't know, there's more than 5 different tribes in the region. 3 of the tribes were loyal to Gaddafi. The other 2 groups out of eastern Libya are more Saudi Arabian and Yemen-backed. And now they have been going into every town and city they've taken and just murdering people en masse, hanging people from lamp poles. Anybody they see that's black, that's associated with people not of Arab descent. And so it goes back to that old ancient bigotry of some of the Arabs in the region in the black slave trade. And so they're just being killed on the spot. And there's no doubt this has been a humanitarian mega disaster, and that the globalists want chaos and carnage. They'll get control of the oil fields and guard them. They'll get control of the refineries and guard them, and will shut off the supply to a great extent, both to the Libyans and to Europe. And you think, well, wait, Europe wants to go in, NATO wants to go in to get that oil. No. There's too much oil. That's why our own government won't let us have 90+% of the oil out of Alaska, even though they've got the fields developed since the 1980s. It's about artificial scarcity in the globalist monopoly game. They artificially make light bulbs where they break in a few months when they could last 50 years. They artificially went in and bought up most of the smaller refineries in the U.S. in the 90s to create a bottleneck so that even if you could deliver oil, you can't get it refined. AP sued in 2000 and got the documents of the big oil companies meeting in secret in 1996 to buy up, which they did do, the refineries in the U.S. that they don't own, and to shut them down. Then they say, oh, it's the environmentalists. They're keeping us from being able to open new refineries. Pure bull. Oh, they'll have some hippies stand out front of a refinery and call for it to be shut down, and then the hippies wonder why it's been shut down and think they have all this power. It's really funny, actually. And, boy, people think the hippies are keeping the people that run our country from opening up all those oil fields. The folks that have hijacked our nation invade countries and kill over 1 million people to shut off the oil, a.k.a. Iraq. Production way down since the liberation 8 years ago. This is what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it's all about. They could create 500,000 jobs, the studies show, in just a few months if they opened up drilling in Alaska and opened it up in many other areas on public lands. But they're not going to do it. If they do, it'll be to a limited token extent. And so now the true mass murder deindustrialization of Libya can start. There will be ongoing bombings and civil wars and tit-for-tat tribal killings basically forever now. And I predict that the West in the next 2 to 5 years will have to invade. And notice they're now announcing, oh, the U.S. forces will now come in to help. NATO forces will now come in to help. The air cover is going to continue. Of course it's going to continue. The rebels, as they call themselves, the rebels, the wascally rebels, have been killing each other from the start. That's why for 6 months they couldn't ever get any momentum until the last couple of months when U.S. British, French, and other special forces poured in. And all the different videos of U.S. and other troops and mercenaries on the front lines running the high-tech weapon systems finally did roll back Gaddafi's forces up to Tripoli. Then they'd already been able to infiltrate Tripoli. The last 7 years of Gaddafi trying to be friendly to the West, they had all their sleeper cells there that unleashed total havoc 48 hours ago and started bombing and blowing things up and attacking TV stations. And so now they're just going to mop people up and go around and exterminate folks. Part of the kinetic military action, non-military action, the peace action. And it's now admitted that they've got Western-backed forces in Syria. And that liberation will go on forever, if need be, until Assad falls. Remember, they've already got America. It was all over the Texas newspapers, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, by the way, speaking of energy monopolies, that the rolling blackouts have been because of the last 6-7 years, the EPA not letting new plants open, shutting down other plants. Now Obama has accelerated that, and that they're saying, get ready for double prices in the next 2 years for your power. It's already gone up substantively. And rolling blackouts. We're going to live just like they live in Iraq, just like they're going to be living in Libya. This is the New World Order, Soviet-Romanian-style system. NATO hands terrorists who killed U.S. troops control of Libya. That is coming up. And your phone call. Stay with us. Ask yourselves, what are you doing in this time of great challenge? What are you doing to unlock minds? It was staggering for me when 9/11 took place to watch the media tell us how Al-Qaeda was this enemy and that the government had no idea that they had a plan to attack us. I knew they'd been used and created to attack the Russians in Afghanistan. I knew that they had been used to attack the Serbs in Kosovo. And when the Serbs resisted that attack, that NATO had bombed Belgrade into the Stone Age, bombing their power plants, their water treatment, their television stations with depleted uranium weapons. Now, a decade later, their birth defects have more than tripled in those cities that were bombed. These are ruthless globalists. And to see the rebel commander brag to the Washington Post and others that, yes, I've killed Americans in Iraq, and now I only, quote, hate the Americans 50%. That's right. The groups out of Saudi Arabia and other areas that are in Libya under NATO and U.S. command on record are real Al-Qaeda, real fighters who go all over the world fighting for their Islamic jihad. And they wanted to get rid of Muammar Gaddafi because he was a socialist and secular. He paid lip service to Islam. He did obviously keep a lot of money for himself and was corrupt, but in the standards of dictators, did build up the country, did have a welfare state, and that's all bye-bye now. Libya is going to be driven into the Stone Age, just as America is. In fact, there's a new article out that's so important that we need to get out to everyone. It just got published at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. I worked on this report with Paul Watson this morning. Obama hit struggling Americans with energy rate hikes. And as I said, Drudge ran the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, Washington Post, and others yesterday, where they admitted that, yes, we're already having blackouts when it gets cold or gets hot and there's high energy demands because of the last 6 years of policies under Bush and now under Obama. And now they're announcing massive plant closures. These are plants that nothing comes out of them but water vapor and carbon dioxide. But they've listed at the EPA carbon dioxide as a toxic waste. Now remember, you exhale carbon dioxide. Plants then engage in photosynthesis with it and the sun. It's part of the carbon cycle. It's part of our atmosphere. It's part of the symbiotic relationship. But that has been named as toxic, And that's why they're calling for carbon taxes and carbon credits and a carbon allotment, a ration for every man, woman, and child. Congress would not pass this law 2 years ago when Obama brought it forward. First piece of legislation. He simply said, I'll just have the EPA do it. Just like they couldn't get Congress to pass tax hikes, they just got rid of Congress being able to bring bills forward. And they now have a super Congress that does that. And if the Congress doesn't pass their bills, they just go ahead and pass whatever the super Congress wanted. They say, we've created this package, up or down vote, and if you say no, they just implement the policies. That's a dictatorship of this oligarchy. I mean, we are in incredible times. Gun control without laws, now being implemented by the ATF. Finally, they did something good for a change. We'll see if they lose the case on purpose. But finally, even the so-called Second Amendment organization came out, the National Rifle Association, and is suing Obama over that. So, he is going to legalize 300,000 deportees and all future deportees unless the president feels that they need to be deported. He says maybe felons will be deported. So Congress wouldn't legalize illegals. So Obama just violates federal immigration law and deportation law and waves his executive wand. Gun control executive wand, wars executive wand, super Congress executive wand, carbon taxes executive wand, waivers to insiders on health care laws who give him money, campaign contributions, magic executive wand, and now energy rate increases for the few companies that are allowed to operate, like General Electric, who got the waiver in February. They got the waiver. And it turns out their former executives at the EPA and the White House wrote the new regulations. They wrote them. Just like Big Agra last year wrote the Food Safety Act. I mean, why not? If we don't have a government that's constitutional and out of control, you don't think big corporations are going to come in and pay them to pass legislation or put executive orders in place to shut down their competition? Absolutely. And the government's getting away with all of it. So what's going to happen? Even more. See, we're entering the real tyranny phase now. You're going to see more happen in a year than happened in the previous decade.
Where's your crown, King?
When you're crowned king nothing, like Muammar Gaddafi. 7 years ago, he made public deals with George W. Bush and the West. He let the West in for investment, invested the country's money with the bankers. They have now publicly stolen more than $70 billion of the Libyan people's investment. They are going after the 144 tons of gold, just like the U.S. military on record went in with foreign contractors and robbed every one of the museums in Baghdad, and then no one knows where it all went. This is just outright, total industrialized looting. And our military's having their pension funds looted. It is being announced they're looking at cutting military retirements by 50%. Those that serve 20 or more years and have a contract with the government, they're going to cut what you're paid and devalue the rest of it via hyperinflation. What, did you think you could join the U.S. military and ship heroin out of Vietnam? Did you think you'd join the U.S. military and go down to Colombia and kill the FARC to consolidate the cocaine? What, you think you'd train Los Zetas, 10,000 plus over the last decade, and then send them down to Mexico to try to knock out the cartels, and that you would then ever get your pension fund too? Of course, the average military person didn't even get any of the drug money and isn't aware of it and is compartmentalized. But we have a lawless criminal government. Completely lawless, completely criminal, and they're now engaging in bolder and bolder activities. I'd say the type of corruption we saw under George Herbert Walker Bush, a 3.5 on the Richter scale. It was going on, but they were trying to keep it hidden. Under Bill Clinton, a 5 on the Richter scale. Under George W. Bush, a 7 on the Richter scale. Under Obama, it's a whopping 10. Remember, it grows exponentially on the Richter scale. I mean, now he's just, I don't need Congress for war. I don't need Congress for UN Agenda 21 carbon taxes. I'm going to deploy the military under the Rockefeller Foundation. That's in the news yesterday. In the Rural Council run by Homeland Security and the Pentagon in your town with a local office to help you with loans and things. Ooh, boy, we are going under Soviet control. You've really got to look at the Soviet model and realize this is it. We are going under a Sovietization system. You're like, but I thought it's big banks running it. The profits are private. The losses are public. It all goes on our back. They're all offshore, exempt from all their taxes, exempt from all their regulations. That's why you see all the big mega rich calling for higher taxes and telling the poor, get them rich people making over $125,000 individually, $250,000 collectively with a man and woman. Get them, they're the rich. And you see the hordes of people on welfare and the rest of it saying, my check isn't buying anything anymore. Okay, raise it. And they're like, good, we've got half the public on the gravy train. They're going to tear the middle class to pieces while we sit offshore. And when the vets get mad and the cops try to come to take their house for repossession, and the vets fight back, we're going to call them Al-Qaeda. They've got it all figured out in their social engineering. I can't tell you, ladies and gentlemen, how many veterans I've talked to and that my family's talked to. My parents were in Wyoming and Montana for a week and a half visiting friends. They went on a road trip, and my dad got back. They didn't tell anybody that they were Alex Jones's parents. And every restaurant, every house they went to, every rancher they talked to, everybody they met on top of mountaintop hiking, young and old, Native American, white, didn't matter, said, we know the New World Order's here. We're just waiting. And my parents just said it was everywhere. It was just open everywhere you went, at gas stations, you name it, people basically saying, we're ready, we're ready, we're ready to rock. And that's why Chuck Baldwin moved up there. And he said it's just absolute, totally awake. I mean, I've been in Wyoming and Montana in the last 2 years, and I can't walk down the street. I mean, I can't walk down the street in Austin, Texas without folks pulling over and shaking my hand. But there, it's everyone, basically. I mean, Aaron and others who went with me were just blown away. We'd be walking down the street at night in little bitty towns, and people pop out of doorways. Alex Jones, I recognize your voice. We're going to defeat them. Come in the restaurant. I want to buy you a beer. I mean, it's just, so let me tell you, the globalists know who the terrorists are. It's real Americans who understand who the financial terrorists are. You are the terrorist, and they know they're the terrorist. They understand. Anybody who actually knows what America is really all about is a terrorist. You look at the government training manuals, returning veterans, gun owners, in the Fedders, Ron Paul supporters, Bob Barr supporters, Libertarian Party supporters, land rights activists. By the way, I was driving in, and I forgot to pull this up. He was reading the news article. The FDA is going after vitamin C now, and Ben Fuchs was reading the articles. Will you guys type in Food and Drug Administration moves to restrict or ban? He was reading two different articles. One article was restrict vitamin C. The other was ban vitamin C over the counter. And I know that's already starting in Europe under Codex Alimentarius. I've got articles here where they're arresting people all over the United States now, from D.C. To Washington State. Those are just the two articles today when you try to sell lemonade. They don't just fine you now if children come out and sell lemonade. They're actually fining and threatening to arrest Girl Scouts selling cookies now, or Girl Scout popcorn. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, it is on. They're letting us know you live in a Soviet America where the book is thrown at average law-abiding citizens and criminals are above the law. It is so hardcore. It is so hardcore. In fact, later we'll pull this video up and play it. Children defy police in Washington, purchase lemonade in the capital city, and are arrested. It's incredible footage of them being threatened, the police acting like they're narcotics traffickers. And then meanwhile, it's well known. We had Serpico on, Frank Serpico, the legendary New York narcotics detective. And I said, around the time you got shot in the face and run out of there. I've read 75% of the detectives were later proven on the take. And he said, well, in my group, it was 100%. 100%. Ladies and gentlemen, the town I grew up in, Rockwall, I was not even a druggie. I was a jock. And I would go to parties. And when I was 12 years old, it started playing baseball down the street. One of my friends invites me over. His older brother's in high school. Cop shows up in uniform, goes in the house, sells him drugs to distribute. And I'll never forget my buddy's big brother said, hey, when I was 13, a year later, I had a moped. And he said, I'll pay you $20 to deliver this marijuana to this house, and that house. Of course, I didn't do it. And he got mad at me and didn't trust me anymore. But the point is, that's how America operates. That's how America operates. And the cops would be having DARE programs and talking about drug testing at the school and drug dogs. And I would see cops that I knew were involved in drug dealing. And I would say, you're not going to search me. I don't use drugs like you do. And the cops would flip out, take me into the office, slam my head in the desk, and scream at me. They were so mad that I wouldn't love their evil and bow down to their drug dealing anymore. Okay? This is what America is, rotten as Hades itself. And if we don't admit this, we have no future. It's coming to a terminal head. Now, you may live in a town where the cops don't deal the drugs, but that's the exception, not the rule. All right, I'm going to shut up and go to your calls. It's just that in my gut, in my intellect, in my spirit, my discernment, whatever you want to call it, I am on the edge of my seat right now. I've told you in the last year that my spidey sense, we all have it, my sixth sense, my gut, has been absolutely on edge, like I'm at the edge of a cliff. And now it's intensifying every hour. They are preparing some type of World War III startup. The globalists are preparing massive terror attacks in America and Europe, and it is going to be hellish. It is going to be absolutely horrible, and we're going to have to watch the murderers, the social engineers who've done the attacks, grandstand as our saviors. And as the public gets scared during a depression and during a war, they think you're going to go along with their takeover of America. And it's time for every radio talk show host, every police officer, every pastor, every college professor, every school teacher, every doctor, every lawyer, every auto mechanic, every farmer, every rancher, every factory worker, every lawn person. I don't care what you do. Every retail clerk. To count the cost, to face history, to realize that while we've been tuned into a false reality of football and celebrity and all the rest of it that people are such experts on, that reality's been going on all around you. While you're busy out in the middle of a field watching a television, and you think that television's the only thing in the world, you didn't hear the wolves howling. Now the wolves are all around you in the dark, and you can look out from the glow of the TV in the middle of this field we're in collectively and see their eyes and hear their growling. And the television is telling you, those are friends. Lay down. Show them your neck. They want to lick it. And the TV says, lay down. The wolves are here to help. And many Americans are going, okay. All right, here's my neck. And we watch as Americans are grabbed by the wolves and drug out into the night. Good people have to get together around a code of ethics and ideas and defend those, or civilization always falls. One of the globalists' biggest problems to handle is how do they balance the countries they're looting And how do they keep safe havens for themselves to move to after they've totally destroyed societies? They want to play the military-industrial complex foot soldiers, the police, the military, the private contractors, off against the American people. But the 30 pieces of silver you're being given to carry out the destruction of America, the conversion of America to a third world dictatorship of the plutocrats, you're destroying your own nest, your own future, your children's future. You are selling your birthright for nothing. For nothing, for a pittance. I'm going to go to Dana, Lennon, Carl, Sean, and others. But I just want to impart to you the magnitude of this. We are entering a nightmare tyranny. There is no doubt. A nightmare. It could stop any time people start valuing liberty. But when the average man thinks that being a man is lifting weights and having big muscles and strutting around and watching football and driving a big pickup truck, and I like big pickup trucks too, I'm saying that's not, being a man doesn't mean you act like you're a man and act like you're looking for trouble with somebody that cuts in front of you at the grocery store at the liquor aisle. Being a man means you're informed. Being a man means you're involved. Being a man means that you see it as your absolute mission to defend our republic. Whatever the cost is. And being a man means you have the courage to not be brainwashed and buy into the false psychological warfare paradigm that you're fed. Let's go to Dana in Alabama. You're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Hey, Alex, it's good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you, sir. What's on your mind?
Hey, look, I've got one question. I'll make it quick. It's kind of a crazy question, but I've seen a lot of craziness by this government. Look, my eyes are telling me something that my mind is telling me is impossible, but it might be my spidey sense making me ask this question. When is somebody going to do a facial measurement comparison between photos of Osama and photos of Obama to prove whether or not this is the same person in these pictures?
They do look a little bit alike. That is hilarious. That Osama, Obama. Oh, by the way, will you repull that? Stratfor, a very respected private intelligence group based here in Austin, Texas, that even does reportage for the federal government, has come out and said that that wasn't bin Laden they killed at that compound, and that it's as phony as a $3 bill. Dana, I appreciate your call. That's hilarious. I know they've done the voice prints in universities in Canada and in France of the supposed bin Laden video audio, of the new videos that came out in the last 7-8 years, and none of it was bin Laden. Okay, let's go ahead and talk to Lennon in Oregon. You're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Thank you, Alex. I'll try to be quick so I don't get too much cancer for my cell phone. First, I want to thank you, and I know you don't like to talk about yourself, but, you know, you woke me up during the fall of '08, and it is you who is doing God's work. And, you know, I know we're going to win this because of your listeners. We're much stronger than the other side. The other side is weak. I mean, look, the Rothschilds are a bunch of inbreds. Anyway, there's only, 6,000 super families or whatever? And there's less than 20 super families, so only a few thousand of those. But Rothkopf, the head of the Kissinger Group, wrote in his book 3 years ago, Superclass, that, yeah, we're setting up a world government for your own good, and that there's 6,000 super gophers who have all this incredible power because they serve the eye of Sauron, basically. Right, and they really believe that, too. You're on a roll today, and I was taking a lot of notes, but there's one thing that I really want to focus on. and this is basically for Steve Mustaine, anybody that does not understand what gold is money, by definition, by the definition of money. I'm just going to roll through this really quickly.
You said that information's for who?
Steve Mustaine, because, you know, some people don't understand that when there is a collapse, we're going to use gold and silver as money.
You mean Dave Mustaine?
I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah, but the guy that was criticizing gold was the front man for Ministry, not Dave Mustaine. But listen, I'll have you finish up your point on gold when we come back. By the way, Dave Mustaine's a listener, so we'll be right back. Stay with us. We're only 9 days away from the launch of InfoWars Nightly News. Every evening, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. We will have a 30-minute, focused, condensed, power-packed, information-packed 30-minute transmission. Many nights will then continue live with an extended interview or an extended special report. We'll be premiering a lot of special reports as well that we have produced at the end of the nightly news many nights. And we're developing it for PrisonPlanet.tv members. And we have a lot of cable networks and systems that are interested in picking it up. In fact, I've had people offer me, hey, produce a TV show and we'll put it on our cable system. Or we'll put it on the satellite system. But I've had people come to us years ago and again this year, even last month, and say, edit together every day the highlights of your 3-hour radio show that's also streamed out as TV at PrisonPlanet.tv. The production's pretty good. We like to put it on this Sky television feed, or we'd like to put it on this German feed, or this Japanese feed, or this feed that's, channel 1,000-something in the U.S., and I just haven't had the time, the energy to get that done. But now that's what the news show is going to be about, and so now is a better time than ever to become a member at PrisonPlanet.tv. And one of my great IT people's father died of a heart attack last week. We would have already launched some new features for PrisonPlanet.tv, but his dad died last Monday, and so he isn't coming back until Wednesday. We could have already launched it too, but we need him here to make sure when we launch these new features at PrisonPlanet.tv. So our prayers go out to that particular individual here in the office. Okay, Lennon, yeah, to be clear, we had the front man, Al Jorgensen of Ministry on, saying everything's going to collapse so bad you won't even want gold. So it wasn't Dave Mustaine that you heard criticizing gold.
Right. And so, he could be right in effect that this economy looks like it's going to collapse. The world economy looks like it's going to collapse. It was done by design by Ivy League economists like Paul Krugman, who in his Nobel laureate speech said there's going to be a rise of firms, and we're setting this corporatocracy up, this fascist economy up.
Well, it doesn't look like it. I mean, we've got the IMF World Bank documents, and that's how we predicted all this with total precision. This is 100% scripted.
Right, exactly. But when it does collapse, you see, there's still going to need to be a store of wealth. And a means of exchange. And by definition, gold is money. And let me just run through this. 4 definitions.
Listen, Lennon, if people don't understand this, they're never going to understand it. If they don't understand that the dollar's been devalued, so gold's almost $1,900, and silver was $5, and it's $43 today, it's an industrial metal. It's always been money since civilization existed, and it's a hedge against inflation, and it's something you can barter with, and it's easily transportable store of wealth. If people don't understand that in Africa 5,000 years ago it was money, in China 5,000 years ago it was money, that it was money with the Aztecs 2,000 years ago, you're not going to be able to explain it to them. I appreciate your call. You're not going to be able to explain it. Listen, Mike Adams wrote a really nice article about me because he's had a chance to come in our office and see that we're here working hard. And the headline, "Is Alex Jones for real?" And Aaron asked me if I wanted to post this yesterday, and I said, I don't know. But I made the decision today to post it because it's pointless. I mean, he's nice to write it. It's a nice article. But who cares if people have debates about whether I'm real or not? if people don't know I'm real, then it's kind of like an IQ test. They can go put, the helmet on and go live in a rubber room. All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.